What if I told you that getting wealthy has less to do with how smart you are and a lot more to do with just your behavior? It's a pretty radical idea, right? But that's the core of Morgan Housel's incredible book, The Psychology of Money. So, in this little explainer, we're going to dive into some of the surprising truths about our relationship with wealth. And honestly, they might just change the way you think about your finances for good.
So yeah, the book's main idea is it's simple, but it's also really profound. Doing well with money, it has almost nothing to do with your IQ and everything to do with how you act. As Housel himself says, it's not a hard science like physics or math. It's a soft skill, which is actually the harder thing to master, isn't it?
Okay, so to really bring this point home, Housel kicks things off with this amazing story. It's a story that basically frames the entire book. It's a tale of two guys whose financial lives ended up in places you would just never, ever expect.
So on one hand, you've got Ronald Reed. He was a janitor, a gas station attendant in Vermont, lived a really simple life, saved what little he could, and just patiently invested in solid blue-chip stocks. And get this, when he died, he left behind an $8 million fortune. $8 million! Then, on the other hand, you have Richard Fiscone. This guy was the total opposite. Harvard-educated, a top executive at Merrill Lynch, but he was completely ruined by greed and too much debt, and he ended up declaring bankruptcy. The key thing here, the real takeaway, is that this huge, massive gap in their education and their pedigrees, it meant nothing compared to a simple difference in their behavior.
And this quote from Housel just nails it, doesn't it? Financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. It's not about spreadsheets and complex formulas. It's all about mastering our own minds. So with that as our foundation, let's start digging into some of the key principles that explain why we act the way we do with money.
So why do we make the financial decisions that we do? Why do some of us save obsessively while others spend freely? Well, the book argues that it really boils down to one thing: our personal history. That's the single biggest influence on how we think about money. And this leads us right into the first big concept from the book, and I love this one. No one's crazy. Think about it. Your financial choices, even the ones that might look totally bizarre to me or to your friends, they make perfect sense to you. And that's because every decision you make is filtered through this incredibly unique and also very, very limited lens of your own personal experiences.
I mean, just look at this quote. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. Isn't that wild? That tiny, tiny sliver of what we've personally seen is what shapes our entire financial reality. It's exactly why I say someone who grew up with high inflation views debt completely differently than someone who only ever experienced a booming stock market.
So the question is, why? Why are our own personal experiences just so powerful? Well, it turns out there's a specific psychological reason for this. It's a cognitive bias that's always working behind the scenes, shaping how we see everything related to money.
It's a phenomenon called experiential blindness. Basically, we're hardwired to just devalue or dismiss information if it doesn't line up with what we've personally lived through. And this is a huge deal. It's what makes it so hard to have empathy for other people's financial situations, and it's why we're so quick to judge their choices without ever knowing their backstory. This blind spot, this experiential blindness, also makes it really tough for us to appreciate two other massive forces at play: luck and risk. We love to think that our successes and failures are 100% our own doing. But Housel makes this great point that luck and risk are really just two sides of the same coin, and they are silently shaping every single outcome.
And this quote from Scott Galloway just says it all. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. It's such a good reminder, isn't it? We need to have a little humility when we succeed, because hey, maybe luck played a part. And we need to have a little forgiveness for ourselves when we fail, because risk is just always part of the equation. Okay, so once we understand that our view is limited and that luck plays a role, that brings us to a really critical part of the whole financial journey. How do we even define our goals? Because it turns out it's not just about getting wealthy, it's about having the right mindset to stay wealthy. Housel tells this fantastic story. So the author Joseph Heller is at a party thrown by a billionaire, and his friend Kurt Vonnegut points out that this billionaire host made more money in a single day than Heller's famous novel Catch-22 had made in its entire history. And Heller's response is just perfect. He says, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." Wow. Just knowing when to stop moving the goalposts. That is one of the most powerful financial skills you can have. So here's the really crucial point. The skills you need to build wealth are often the complete opposite of the skills you need to keep it. Think about it. Getting wealthy, that takes risk, it takes optimism, you have to put yourself out there. But staying wealthy, that takes humility, it takes a little bit of fear even. And it takes the discipline to save, because you have to realize that what you've built can disappear just as fast.
But why is that staying wealthy mindset so important? Why the focus on fear and just hanging on to what you have? Well, it's because our brains are wired in a very specific way. There's a powerful psychological force that makes the act of losing money feel absolutely awful.
And it's called loss aversion. Psychologists have found that the pain of losing, say, $1,000 is about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $1,000. The sting of loss is just so much stronger. So having a survival mindset isn't really a math strategy. It's a behavior one. It's about protecting yourself from that crushing emotional pain of being wiped out.
All right, this brings us to another really important idea in the book, one that seems a little counterintuitive at first, and that's the difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Housel has this great name for it, the man in the car paradox. It goes like this. When you see someone driving a really fancy car, what do you think? You probably don't think, wow, that driver is so cool, right? Instead, you just imagine yourself in the car. We think our flashy possessions will make people admire us, but really, people just use them as a benchmark for their own desire.
So here's the real difference. Being rich is about your current income. It's visible. It's the fancy car, the big house. It's stuff you can see. But wealth is hidden. Wealth is the money you didn't spend. It's the stocks and investments sitting quietly in an account, giving you options, flexibility, and most importantly, freedom.
And that word right there, freedom, that's really what this all boils down to. The book really wraps up by exploring what the true purpose of having money even is.
So the highest value of money, it's not the luxury stuff. It's not a bigger house or a faster car. The real prize is the ability to wake up one morning and say to yourself, I can do whatever I want today. That control over your own time, over your own life, that is the greatest dividend money could ever pay you.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. Think of it like a journey. Step 1, you have to define what enough means for you. That's what lets you escape that trap of constantly comparing yourself to others. Step 2, with enough defined, you can adopt that survival mindset, focusing on staying in the game. And that gives you the time, the longevity, to let the quiet magic of compounding do its work, letting your money grow over years and years. And the final destination of that entire journey? It's freedom. The freedom to live your life on your own terms.
And so that really leaves us with one last, very personal question to think about. The book makes a strong case that the ultimate goal of money is freedom. But freedom means something different to every single one of us. So as we close out, maybe just take a quiet moment to consider, what does financial freedom truly mean to you?